Napoleon Bonaparte once came to a shul. He happened to come in on none other than Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, the day that marks the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, of the temple in Jerusalem, now some over 2,000 years ago. And he comes into the shul and he sees, as is customary, the Jews are sitting on the floor. The lights, the candles are dimmed, few candles, and there's a tremendous sense of grief and of mourning, some people even crying. And Napoleon turns to the person walking with him and says, "Please explain, why are they lamenting? Why are they so depressed? What are they mourning? What are they grieving?" And Napoleon's confidant responds and says that today is a very special and somber day in the Jewish calendar. Marks the destruction of the temple of the Jews in Jerusalem. Napoleon looks very perplexed and he says, "I've been all over the world. I keep abreast of all international affairs that are taking place, be it under my control or not, and I have not come across any report speaking of the destruction of the Jewish temple." And his confidant turns around and says, "No, I'm sorry, you misunderstand, but rather it was destroyed 1800 years ago on this day, and therefore the Jewish people sit on this day every single year in this very fashion, crying, lamenting and bemoaning the fate of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem." Napoleon was awestruck. 1800 years later, they're still sitting and grieving, marking an event that transpired so long ago. And he was so overcome and overawed that he turned to his confidant and he made a very telling statement. He said, a people that never forget their history are guaranteed to remain alive for all eternity. It's a very profound statement, and it's very true in reference to the Jewish people. We have unfortunately undergone time and time again persecution and attempts at annihilation. And yet here we are today, over 2,000 years since the destruction of the temple, as vibrant, as dynamic, as achieving, and as religious as ever before. How is it? And I think the answer is something that Napoleon himself touched upon. It's the idea of us to be able to look back at our history, to remember. But what's the function of remembering? Why is it so important for us never to forget and always to remember? We're living a short while, relatively speaking, after the Holocaust, and yet the world is becoming complacently forgetful about those events and allowing them to repeat themselves. And usually we say that whoever does not study history and whoever does not learn from their mistakes is doomed to repeat them. And yet the tragedy is that even in a world which is so au fait with the history and the stories of the past, nevertheless we continue to repeat them. The impotence of the international community today is no different than it was in days gone by 60 years ago and throughout the ages. One need only look at what's going on in the world around us to realize that people are dying every single day, being murdered by their own governments. Take Syria, for example, and no one does anything. No one says anything. They might come out with a resolution, but that's all. So yes, we know the history, but do we know the message of the history? And when the Torah instructs us, and when Jewish law instructs us to remember history, it's not because it's a history book. The Torah is not simply a storybook, but rather Torah is the expression of hora'ah, a message, a lesson. And our history carries with it a lesson and a message for each and every one of us then, and equally so now as well. So let's look at the 9th of Av. We're all familiar that the second temple, the consequences of its destruction we still feel, was destroyed because there was a sentiment amongst the people that played itself out tragically as an aspect of senseless hatred. There was just an enmity to other people. What was that enmity? Well, I'm sure it carried many different aspects. And most of us would turn around and say, well, we don't carry that anymore. We know we do not suffer from that hatred of a fellow Jew regardless, without any rhyme or reason. And if we do have a faribel, it does have a reason. It does have a catalyst. So what is the message? I think the message is that aspect of intolerance. That aspect that says that I am right and nobody else has a valid alternative opinion. And any opinion that dissents with mine is wrong, and hence creates a discord and a divide between people. I always say it's fascinating that our rabbis tell us that Talmidei Chachamim Marbim Shalom Ba'olam, that Torah scholars engender and increase peace in the world, and yet any rudimentary study, both of the Talmud or of any other literature that we have, from the Code of Jewish Law down to everything that we possess today, it's dissenting opinions. The Talmud is over 2,700 folios of arguments and disagreements, one after the other. How can you say that they increase peace? Because what they showed us in their discussion, in their arguments, was that whilst they had a difference of opinion, first of all, they were willing to hear the other's opinion. They were willing to accept that possibly they as individuals had an incorrect understanding, incorrect view. But most importantly, they were able to show that even if I maintain that I'm right and you maintain that you're right, it doesn't in any way impinge upon our relationship one with the other. And that is something very unique and very Jewish, to be able to disagree and yet agree to disagree. To be able to disagree and yet have a tremendous affinity one to the other. Man does not possess absolute truth. No individual can say that we are absolutely true and absolutely correct all of the time. Most of us are correct some of the time. No one's truly correct all of the time. But really we have to realize that our lives is a pursuit of truth, is a pursuit of integrity, and ultimately that even when we have dissenting opinions, we cannot allow that to become something that is divisive, something that sows the seeds of discord, because discord ultimately destroys the people. The discord that we saw 2,000 years ago led to the destruction of the temple, and tragically, after 2,000 years of really a living hell, from one pogrom to the other, from one persecution to another, from one Holocaust to another, we still struggle with the notion of Jewish unity. We still struggle with the notion of Jewish tolerance. We still struggle with the notion of Jewish intellectual pluralism. It's something that is so difficult for us, and yet something that is clearly, if we look in our history, the greatest insight that we can have to our glorious future as well. So therefore, like Napoleon said, when we look back at history and we don't just lament the destruction of the temple, but rather more importantly, we focus on what it was that caused its destruction, so that we have the wherewithal to reverse that by way of our conduct and our behavior. We look back at the cause of the destruction of the temple, and hopefully we fortify ourselves to commit to change ourselves, to change our ways, to change our attitudes, in order to be able to reverse that which created the destruction and ultimately lead to the rebuilding of the temple. May it please God this 9th of Av not be a day of mourning, but hopefully if we take the message of national unity, not asking for national sameness, just for national unity, if we can take that message, then we will be able to see the glory of the Jewish people once again rise to the greatest heights as it was in those days. Good Shabbos.